Hey, thanks. I've actually changed the title to the Director of Happiness. So that's that, and but it is in the narrator of a guy who is struggling with the concept that he may be a narcissist. Can you hear me? All right. Okay. I want to give, before I begin, I want to give a shout out to Sebastian Matthews, who cannot be here with us tonight because he was in a terrible car accident, I guess a couple of months ago now. And today he began his first day of physical therapy, walking again. To give a brief, this is a difficult novel to read from. I've chosen to read the brief chapter 5 only. So I want to just tell you kind of what it's about a little bit. A brief bit of a synopsis is that a successful cool hunter or consumer insight expert, J.J. Fleming, is tasked by his director of happiness to record his thoughts for the week. His thoughts, however, are too many and his time too limited to do anything other than record them over the course of an hour as he makes his way to the NYU fertility clinic where his wife of 12 years has asked him to meet her to get the results of an amniocentesis. Will the test results prove that Fleming is the father or the other man Fleming's wife has been seeing on and off again over the course of several years? The entire novel takes place in the span of an hour, so it is tough to read for 10 minutes or so and give you so I've chosen chapter 5 and we'll do the best we can. Sure, it's narrated by J.J. Fleming. Sure, I realized with my mind, even while I was making my spiel, that I was a little frenzied because of the situation. I wouldn't let my mind go any further than that. I can't take it. Do you know brain research reports that the same part of the brain that receives physical pain also lights up from emotional pain? It's why you feel punched in the gut when someone dumps you. You probably know that. Maybe you're the one who told me. The truth is, I've had all manner of ailments over the past several years due to the pain inflicted on me by E. I've dealt out my own share too. As you say, hurt people hurt. Footnote. It's funny, but the very same line was used by Greenberg, starring Ben Stiller. I bet the writer Noah Baumbach has had the same experience with therapist. Ha. As I crossed one of those sewer grates the city of New York installed a decade ago to relieve some of the pressure of their antiquated sewer system, I thought, unseen depths. To the depths is where I've been, and I probably still need to process that with you, no matter how useful such writing and transaction analysis may be. For instance, this disturbing insight. I can now empathize with a murderer. At least the one who acts out of one of the primal lusts, the taking of a man's wife. I've plotted furious, murderous plots of the man, the homewrecker, the worm. So I won't lie. My recent pursuit of happiness is to turn my thoughts around. And if I'm identifying points of potential empathy, then I must be getting somewhere, even though I understand there is little hope for a true narcissist. Footnote. According to the DSM-4-TR, a person with narcissistic personality disorder, 1, reacts to criticism with rage, shame, or humiliation. 2, takes advantage of other people to achieve his or her own goals. 3, has feelings of self-importance. 4, exaggerates achievements and talents. 5, is preoccupied with fantasies of success, power, beauty, intelligence, and/or ideal love. 6, has unreasonable expectations of favorable treatment. 7, requires constant attention and admiration. 8, disregards the feelings of others, lacks empathy. 9, has obsessive self-interest. 10, pursues mainly selfish goals. These characteristics are true, or seem to be as far as I can ascertain, from at least half the people I work with on a daily basis. Before I met you, I didn't believe in the law of attraction. Now I know. Now I'm a believer. Whether it's truth or illusion or whatever you want to call it, you have to be sold out. Therefore, the thing you believe in can't just be anything. You have to have a strong enough system to see it for what it is, because someone will come along and try to poke holes in your truth illusion, and for you to believe in it, truly believe. I mean, you have to be willing to wrap yourself up in the mantle of all your doubts and really stay there with it and love it. Now I believe that believing in your belief is true. I used to be one of those who refused on principle to believe in something they can't know to be fully true. But isn't the whole thing between belief and non-belief a false proposition in the first place? Isn't that just what the Enlightenment gave us, and now we need to get past the monolithic binary? What if happiness, for instance, and I look forward to what your answer is in our next session, is just a deeper appreciation for the world all around us? Now, not just treating others with higher regard, i.e. treating like my Paul Reed Smith, on a regular basis, but treating everything, all the nouns of the world, the people, places, things, and ideas with high regard. And by paying acute attention to the things most people take for granted and considered mundane, we avoid psychosis. Our amygdala doesn't shut down, and we naturally avoid fear. I think I've attracted some pretty awful things into my life by acting out my fears. Hey, another insight. I didn't even need you for that one. On the outside, you see this successful person who's got his pulse on the hottest culture commodity there is, living in the most exciting, culturally relevant city in the entire world, I believe. But on the outside, here's a man who throws a glass boot against a wall because his wife's not putting out often enough. And then he sets up this path that they both walk down for years, where she's having an on-again, off-again affair with this worm, this parasite, and me, tolerates it, even uses it as a golden ticket to mess around and indulge in his own fantasies with several women. One of them who now exists in my very own office in the very boardroom that morning. The meeting emptied without further incident, not before I'd gone uncomfortably personal about reproduction, and not before I'd posited my theory that the way to true happiness is to arrive at your own irrelevance. I'm not really sure what I meant, and I crossed the street to get to my desired corner, where I'd then cross Boulevard and make my way onto the left-hand side before taking an eventual left at 39th. I still wasn't sure. I replayed the meeting in my mind over and over as if on video. Was I trying to be some kind of spiritual guru? Was I offering a subversive nugget to the blink employees? I don't know. I'm a verbal processor. I need to talk my ideas through, and these are certainly realities that I've been focused on for some time, both in and out of our sessions. Turner was clearly miffed because everyone was even more confused than they were pre-meeting. The project managers didn't know what to tell the worker bees, and I was out the door quickly, mostly because I really had to pee. But also because, no doubt, I really am just formulating these ideas in my mind, and they're private, actually, and I'm not sure I want blink to seize upon these ideas for good or bad because maybe I'm not ready for them to discover the cool in this search for meaning behind the product, this search for a value system that actually brings people together and feeds the poor or helps stop war. Because once the cool part fades away, I'll be left in the dust, being personally responsible for killing the cool just as fast as anyone had seen it. Question: would a narcissist be searching for something outside himself? I stood at the urinal and tried to hurry up and let it go before anyone else came up to one of the other 4 urinals, in which case one of them would want to start would want to talk while peeing, and I'd be stuck, unable to release. I'm no urinal talker like Turner and Brian and Rich and many others. I tried not to think about anyone walking in because that would only increase my hesitation, and of course, someone did. Mike, no less, one of the C-level entrepreneurs of the company one rarely otherwise sees. Mike is not a urinal talker. He's barely a talker at all. This is not necessarily a good thing. At least with a urinal talker, one can hide behind the temporary embarrassment of not being able to release. But with two non-urinal talkers, there is no mistaking when one is whizzing and one is merely standing frigid. For his part, Mike grunted at me and was in full spray the second he unzipped. Way back in the good old days when I first became aware of my bathroom anxiety, I found a temporary solution in which I imagined a scene from Shogun, in which some Japanese warlord forced Pilot Major John Blackthorne, played by Richard Chamberlain in the 1980s made-for-TV miniseries, to lie prostrate and urinated on him in front of a crowd. Footnote. The camera focuses close up on Chamberlain's reddened face as he is shocked, enraged, and humiliated at the same time, or so I projected from Chamberlain's quiet fury. I would substitute myself in the place of the Japanese warlord, and the person in the adjacent urinal, the party responsible for my hesitation, was the prostrate Blackthorne. This fantasy power exchange freed me up without exception until I became concerned with this device as a habit. It seemed to me that I should be able to function in the bathroom like a normal, healthy person, and without having to subjugate anyone to a golden shower, as it were. Thus, I tried other things which worked well enough that I stuck with them. One, my parents were so regimented in my early days as an only child about following up my nightly brushing with an attempt at peeing before bed that ever since, for the rest of my life, I have an automatic urinating response after brushing my teeth. So I would imagine myself brushing my teeth and then would physically spit into the urinal as if I were rinsing to signal to my bladder that it was time to alleviate the tension. The only problem is that in some situations it didn't seem polite, even by urinal standards, to spit into the urinal, Mike being a perfect case in point, so that I sometimes went to the standby too, imagining myself pouring water from my refrigerator. The stream was the perfect size, and frequently, when I poured water into it, I would feel the urge to pee and/or three. Going back to my Easy A physics course from college, in which our professor demonstrated a bladder's amazing capability to expand balloon-like, up to 300%. The bladder as balloon motif sometimes worked when I envisioned my release as either A, poking a hole in the balloon needle-like, or B, releasing the balloon contents as one releases a valve stem. Nothing worked in the immediacy of the moment, and as Mike was probably in midstream by now, if I was going to release in time and not draw attention to my lack of urinal performance, which would possibly be interpreted as a sense of inferiority or intimidation from the alpha male, I had to release now, not, embarrassingly, as Mike completed or neared completion. So in my head, I thrust Mike to the floor, stood over him, and sweet relief. Compounding the temporary thrill, Mike nodded to me as he abruptly finished, turned and walked out without even washing his hands. If he only knew. Freud said we shouldn't judge our fantasies, or maybe he said we shouldn't judge them too harshly. You and I have discussed, however, that even objectively speaking, there are some types of fantasies that lead toward healthy behavior, wellness and happiness, and some toward unhealthy behavior, destructiveness, self or other. Let's face it, I should be ashamed. Except I wasn't. Not really. You do what you have to do. I guess it's my own private fantasy and would remain trapped there forever if not for someone like you providing the rather expensive service that you have. Mike had already yanked open the door and cleared out before I was quite to the sink. It is the privilege of the especially elite not to deign to normal social convention, or maybe I'm just being judgmental. Perhaps he had some Germex in his office. Perhaps he'd touched nothing but the door handle on his way in or out and was merely being his typical C-level manager efficient self. I, for one, delighted in our company's attempts at creating a sophisticated urban elite bathroom environment, especially when it came to the sink. Our nouveau bathroom, for instance, featured 3 large bowl basins upon which a stainless steel single knob emits a pleasant curved-shaped fountain. I took inventory of my sweating pits and realized there was little that could be done about it, especially as I was about to hoof it across town. Why hoof it? Well, for one, I was about to maximize my time, and I knew it would be the perfect time to record my thoughts for the purpose of this very transcription. But more importantly, I needed the exercise. The latest exercise tips coming from doctors isn't that we need a gallon of water a day, as was all the rage in the mid-90s, but that we need to take about 10,000 steps a day. That's a lot of steps. The mirror said in so many words, "You're doing fine." But if you want to keep that jawline as sharp as possible and maintain your youthful visage, you'd better stay slender. I nodded in agreement and mussed my hair that had fallen haplessly flat under the pressure of the meeting. The hand soap performed what it promised and I left feeling a sense of calmness and clarity in spite, or perhaps because of, the temporary dissonance of my urination anxiety. Footnote. Stress relief hand-soaped Bath & Body Works aromatherapy, eucalyptus spearmint. The caption reads, "Think clearly. Eucalyptus essential oils clears the mind to improve concentration. Spearmint essential oil is uplifting and helps the mind to focus." That's the end of chapter 5. Thank you.